Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today, I want to show you all a very quick and easy way to identify and locate distressed zip codes in any place in the United States. And if you're anything like me, I'm a very visual person, and I like things that are nice and neat and visual. And this is where I start my research whenever I'm going into virtual markets. And if you have access to my zip code analysis sheet, I'll link that in the description of this video. This is actually where I got a lot of this data from. I paid a guy from Fiverr to scrape this whole website and put it in a spreadsheet so it was nice and organized. And what I did from there was add Redfin data on top of that. So I used that to analyze my markets very quickly. But I do use this website on a continuous basis if I'm trying to just quickly identify whether or not I want to be in a market or not. So let me explain to you guys what we're looking at here. This website's called EIG.org. This is a nonprofit, and their mission is actually to analyze all the zip codes in the United States. It's not for real estate. It's just so they know what the poverty level is and the disparity level in the United States is. So what we're looking at is a map of Charleston, South Carolina that has distressed status based on what they consider as distressed. So the darker the blue, that means the more prosperous, or in this case, I would say affluent, the zip code is. So just think, you walk outside, you look to your left, you have a Whole Foods. You look to your right, there's a Starbucks. You look to the north, there's a freaking Chick-fil-A. So you get my drift here. It's those types of communities, those types of zip codes. Now, the lighter the blue means it's less affluent, and they're about in the middle. So I would say these lighter blue areas and this green area, those are middle. They're not very, very nice areas to live, but they're not super bad. So the darker the brown is actually the opposite. That indicates the more distressed the market is, or the zip code in this case. So when we're looking at Charleston, and a lot of this stuff is rural areas, the stuff in the dark brown and lighter orange. And this is another thing I want you guys to know as well. About 50% of the distressed zip codes in the United States are rural. So don't get too excited if you go in a market and you see all of this brown. Yes, that's a good thing, but guess what? Nobody's living there probably. So you have to look and check against the population density. I don't market to areas that have a very low population density. Those are going to be very rural locations. Those are going to be areas where there's a lot of farmland. It's like if you were traveling and you were going out in Texas and you just drove for miles and miles and you saw nothing but desert or farmland. What we have here in Charleston is we're in a pretty affluent area. And this is why I don't market to Charleston, to be honest. And visually, you can see why. There's only 2 zip codes that are really distressed. Now, I'm not saying you can't pick up properties in these bluer areas. I actually do target some of these areas here, but you want to have a mixed. Maybe a 50-50 mix of impoverished zip codes or at-risk zip codes, and maybe these ones in the middle that are comfortable. But if I just saw nothing but blue over here, it probably wouldn't be an area we want to target. Now, you may say, well, that's good, right? They're nice areas. Yeah, probably for realtors. But even if you have a homeowner in one of these really prosperous or affluent zip codes, it's going to be very difficult to offer them a cash value for their house at 50 cents on the dollar than in one of these distressed zip codes. Why? Because if you're a seller, and even if your home is all boarded up, you're going to be looking to the left and your right, just like those homeowners in those nice houses. And you're going to say, well, there is a Starbucks down the street. They did build that new rec center. There's a park they're building. And in their mind, they're going to think not only based on what the condition is, that it's a valuable property. You know, they may say, well, somebody could take this and flip it for $500,000. But in their mind, they're looking around and they're saying, well, it has to be worth a lot because Joe Schmo over there here sold his house for 500 grand. Betty Sue sold her house for 600 grand. There's all these grocery stores and event centers and recreational centers being erected, right? In their mind, they're thinking, well, if I just hold on to it for a little while longer, the price will certainly increase. And that may not necessarily be the case. So just keep in mind that, yes, targeting zip codes in these affluent areas are fine, but you probably want to make sure if you want to go after them. And I would say, guys, if you're just starting off, do yourself a favor. Just focus on these very distressed zip codes. And so let me zoom out here and show you what the whole state will look like. Or maybe let me go to a different state here that has more opportunity. So here's Texas. So there are a couple areas I stay away from Texas. And I've targeted them, but I've had issues with homeowners saying that they want X, Y, and Z for their house, like a ridiculous amount for their house. And while that may not be true for every homeowner, that's basically the theme for homeowners that are in affluent areas, or if the whole city is affluent as a whole and it's not mixed. So we see here in Dallas that there's some orange here. We see a little bit of brown, but we also see all of this blue. That's a ton of blue right there over in Denton. I like Houston. So let's zoom into there. So I entered in 77005 here just so I could get a zip code in the Houston area so it can zoom in here. So if you see Houston, like I said, it is evenly dispersed here. And we have a lot of brown. I love seeing that. That is good. And people still want to live here. Just because it's brown, it doesn't mean that it's the hood. You have to stay away from some of those. But if you download my zip code analysis sheet, guys, you'll get a 5-day email sequence that actually shows you the process of choosing your zip codes and eliminating them once you have them there. So just because they're brown, that doesn't mean they are good or bad. This is just a 30,000 foot view, almost literally, because we're looking at this from a bird's eye view of every market in the United States. So if I'm thinking, okay, it looks like we have something here. So I want to make sure there's a high population density. So it doesn't say this here. Well, maybe it does. Let me click here. I want to try to see if the population density is here. So you have all this demographics data, which is good. And this is all on our worksheet, guys. So you can download that to get access to this. So let me go here to see density. I know I have density on my sheet. I'm not sure if they put it here. But one thing you guys want to look for, guys, is actually population density. So you really need to get that sheet because I have that on there. You want to eliminate any zip code that has a low population density because that is a rural area. I like zip codes that have either a high or very high population density. Basically, population density just means how many people there are per, I believe, square mile. So I don't know what the average is, but if it's like one person per a square mile, obviously that is an area we don't want to target because there's no people living there. If there's no people living there, other people don't want to move there. So homeowners want to be where other homeowners are and where they have easy access to public infrastructure, to parks, to grocery stores, to schools, and the list goes on. This is actually a good area to target. This is why I really like Houston because it's balanced. So if you don't like any of these, you can say, okay, well, at least we have some areas outside of here that are prosperous. So it's very balanced here. It's very balanced, which is really good. This is like the ideal market. So if you guys are looking to virtual wholesale, definitely check out Houston. It not only is a solid market where you can pick up properties easily, there are so many zip codes. I think there's over 200 zip codes, not only just in Houston, but the suburbs. So when I say Houston, I don't just mean that town. I mean the whole area surrounding it. So just because I say Atlanta, that doesn't mean just Atlanta City. I mean the areas around it. So keep that in mind as well. Let me go out and I'm just going to browse some other states here. Let's see what else we have in an area I probably haven't looked at. So Arizona. So I know a lot of people talk about Phoenix. So let's see why people talk about Phoenix. Okay, so Phoenix is another one. I like how it looks. It's very balanced. It's very balanced. Good mixture of green, good mixture of blue, good mixture of orange, and dark brown zip codes here, with most of the zip codes being closer to the city center. And that's something I actually learned in policing, and this actually matches up. So I majored in criminal justice in college. I don't use that degree at all, but it's interesting just looking at this now and what I learned in college. It's like the closer you are to the city center, the more turbulent, shall we say, an area is. With more crime comes properties that may be vacant, boarded up, other factors, like lower graduation rates, things like that, things that plague lower income communities. But like I said, just because you're targeting these doesn't mean nobody wants to live there. So there's ways I go throughout actually eliminating distressed zip codes. But like I said, if you just want the quick and dirty way of finding out which zip codes to target and you don't want to go through all this zip code analysis stuff that I'm doing, you could just easily look at this and say, okay, well, hey, these look like some good zip codes for me to target. I'm just going to go after the distressed ones. Honestly, these are where your low-hanging fruit are. And to be honest, if you talk to other investors in your market, they're probably picking up 80% of their properties in these zip codes. That's just what it is, guys. So I hope this helps you guys. If you have any questions or you want me to cover any other topics, please let me know, and I will see you guys in the next video.